Hey everyone, it's Chala from PS I Love You. Thanks so much for stopping by for today's video. I am actually designing today for Scrap and Stamp Canada, and I'm going to be using the Concord 9th Orange Juice Sweet stamp set, and it comes with the coordinating dies. So I'll be using this Orange Juice So, the segment piece, as well as the circle and the solid circle as well. And we're also going to be using a fun technique with Kool-Aid and some clear embossing powder. It's going to be a scratch and sniff card. And so I've already mixed up the orange Kool-Aid and the clear embossing powder. And it's just a 1-to-1 ratio that I used. And yeah, nothing really too hard here. Just mix those two together and hopefully you'll get a nice combination of that smell once you apply that to your embossing ink. So anyways, let's get started here. I'm also going to be using a paper pad here from Michael's that I picked up. It's the Flower Market. I absolutely love this paper pad, the bright colors and the beautiful designs, even that the foiling on the paper. I think it's so great, and there's so many possibilities for this paper pad set. And the one I'm going to be using today is this orange one here. I think it'll coordinate nicely with the images and sentiments I'm using. All right, so we'll go ahead, and I've got this A2 panel here that I'm going to cut down to 2¼ inches by 5½ inches. And I'm going to begin with my VersaFine Black Onyx ink and the outline circle here. And I'm just going to go ahead and stamp this image several times across that panel. So just kind of having it hang off the edge so they're not, you know, so it's not just an exact perfect image. I want to give it some interest. And then I'm just kind of moving them up and down again to add different heights and kind of different layered feel to this card. And I'll clean off my glass media mat in between here just so I don't transfer any of that black ink back onto that panel or any other portions of my card. The next I'm going to be using here is that segment piece. You can use it for limes, oranges, grapefruits, and I just love the fun whimsical stamps in this set. So again, I'm just stamping out these segment pieces inside that outline circle. This is a fairly quick card to put together today. Again, cleaning up in between here, making sure my stamps are all cleaned off. And then the next portion I'm using is this solid circle, and that'll add the color to the orange pieces. And I had something on my stamp, so I had to clean it off. I'm not sure if it was from the last time I used it. And I'm using the Spiced Marmalade Distress ink from Tim Holtz here. I think it's a fantastic color. And apply a generous amount, and then just stamp it over top of those segment pieces. I find with some of these stamps you have to really kind of almost prime them sometimes before that distress ink will really, you know, adhere to them and stamp down nicely. And one of the ways that you can prime your stamps is just by using the clear Versamark ink and just stamp it on there and then stamp it off onto some scrap paper. That sometimes really helps to prime them. And once I get this down, what I'm going to do is actually heat set that ink, because it'll remain a bit wet, but it's not going to be enough, I think, to hold on to that Kool-Aid embossing powder mixture. So I'll just bring my heat gun here and just kind of heat set it. And then what I'll do is go ahead and use that same stamp with the Versamark ink here. And I'll stamp right over top of the orange so that I can apply my embossing powder and Kool-Aid mixture. Again, just kind of mixing it up here. And that'll give enough ink for that to kind of stick there. So again, just continuing on to each image, I like to apply the powder right away, just while it's nice and juicy. I don't like to give it too much time to dry. That way, it just seems like with that Kool-Aid mixture, you want it to stick really well. I'd really like to do, to try and use some grape Kool-Aid. I think that would be fun too. I think my favorite flavors or favorite smells are grape and orange. They seem to be the most realistic to me, I think, out of any of the flavorings that you get. Sometimes the cherries and the raspberries can be kind of sketchy in my mind. So again, here's the last piece here that we're doing. And I have my heat gun already heating up. You want it to be nice and hot. And the trick here is to not let the heat gun linger too long in one area, because you do not want your Kool-Aid powder and embossing powder mixture just scorch, because it can do that. There isn't really sugar in it that will scorch too bad, but those crystals, you want to be careful. That's why I'm kind of heating it from underneath to kind of get it to set up, and so I don't have to have the heat gun on there as long. And then I'm just going to kind of let that cool, set it aside, let it cool a bit. You can kind of feel it, and then once you rub your finger on it and give it a smell, it should smell like oranges. I think it's going to be so much fun. So here I have my standard A2 card base, and I've got that pattern piece cut down to fit the top of that. And I'm just going to adhere that with just a regular tape runner, nothing fancy. I'm really having troubles finding refillable inserts for my Big Mama tape gun. I need to, I guess, have to go online and see if I can find one. So I'll get that all adhered down. And then I'm going to adhere this embossed panel on top. And I think that back pattern paper panel is just, it just coordinates so well with this. So I'm going to set this aside, and I'm going to get the little sentiment strip all prepared here. I'm using my anti-static powder tool. This is a necessity if you're using white embossing powder on the black. You want to really, really apply that well. And I'm using that Orange You So Sweet sentiment. I'll just be using my acrylic block here to do that with the Versamark embossing ink. And I think the embossing powder I used was the Ranger, what is it? The White Ranger Detail Embossing Powder. With small sentiments like this, you want to use a really nice fine detailed embossing powder. So just knock that off. Again, I have my heat gun, it's still heating up or is on, so it's hot and ready to go. You don't want to overheat your strip because it could warp. And I'm just cleaning off some of those little stray embossing bits there so that it looks all nice and clean. Just using a old paintbrush that I have here to do that. And I'll get my gun here, it's all nice and hot, and it should heat set up nice and quick here without warping my paper. And then I'll go ahead and just trim that down so that it's a narrow strip here, and that'll get applied to the top of my card. I'm going to use some foam tape here, just it's 3M foam tape, and my Tim Holtz scissors. Now I'm not actually going to adhere this to the panel right away, because what I want to do is finish off the inside of my card, because the outside is going to say Orange You So, and on the inside I want it to say sweet. So I'm going to go ahead and get the my stamp platform here. I'll just put my card inside, and then the first image I'm going to stamp down is the outline of the word sweet. I'll just kind of center that in my card. And again, just using that same Versamark Black Onyx ink. This is one of my favorite inks. It always does a good job in my mind. It always stamps really nicely, especially for detailed stamps. And then I'll clean that off. And then the second one I'm going to use is actually the one that will fill the inside of that. So it's the solid sweet image. And I'll be stamping that with the spiced marmalade again. So just kind of lining this up. Now I didn't get it lined up perfectly, so on, I think the last E and the T, the orange actually kind of stamps outside of the outline. It's not a huge deal for me. It's okay. I don't really mind. It's not perfect, but that's okay. So I'm actually going to double stamp this. I think next time I would take more time in lining that up, but and then what I'm going to do here is just to add some interest. I'll set that distress ink because again it stays wet for a little bit, and I want to add some Wink of Stella, the clear Wink of Stella, over top of that just to give it some sparkle and shine. There's little details like this that can really make a card. And then once I get that done, I decide to use the little kind of splashes, and I'll stamp those with the, you can kind of see the shimmer there. So those little splashes, I'll also stamp those with the spiced marmalade as well. Now I could have also used the outline splashes, but I just used the solid ones this time. I have to put my stamps back on the original sheet right away, or I have a tendency to lose them. They either get stuck to my arm or I grow legs and they walk away, so I'm pretty neurotic about putting them away right away so I don't lose them. I'm just adding those little splashes to the sweet there. It just kind of gives it a fun finished look. And now I can just go ahead and add that sentiment strip to the front. And that finishes the card. Nothing too hard today, just a quick card, but with that scratch and sniff element. Oh, I had a little bit hanging over from that panel, so I'll just quickly cut it off. But I think that scratch and sniff element to it is going to be so much fun. And then I'll show you a close-up here of the rest of the card here, how it turned out. And then I'll also show you how I did a second card. And this is just a plain white one here, but kind of the same idea. And that finishes off our cards for today. I thank you so much for stopping by and joining me. I really appreciate all your likes and comments. Please share if you have some crafty friends. And until next time, guys, happy crafting. Have a great day.